talking about Marcus, right?
Alright, you ready? Is it recording?
What the hell is that?
Is it recording?
Yes, it's recording.
Okay, what about that?
Oh, shoot, no.
And start.
You're getting good at this.
No, because you did that. He did that one time, and we were talking for like 20 minutes, and it wasn't recording. Aaron wasn't here with us, and it was going perfect, too. It was going perfect. And then we looked down like, are you serious?
I went to Billings, did an interview with the newspaper at Bodyworks, the whole interview, and then got home and realized that it didn't have any audio on
the entire thing. The entire interview was this. Oh,
man. And I got covered in the newspaper. Watch out for this next episode coming out, and then I didn't put it up. I should have just put it up and then
ended up having to redo it. I was there when we redid it, wasn't I?
They should have been like, I can't hear anything. Like, no, you can hear stuff. You can hear
Yeah, ready? I recorded the one we put out, though.
Well, my name is T.T.H. This is Marcus, and we have our dad back here by popular demand. He has topped our podcasting
for a while.
Yeah, and the podcast we released since December.
Yeah,
my dad's podcast has surpassed all of those. So, so we got him back to the podcast, and today we are talking about aliens. My name is, I already said that.
UFOs.
Yeah, UFOs, and you are listening to Fallen Out Radio. Cool. Good. Intro, ready?
Don't do that. Don't hit no stupid button.
You are now listening to Fallen Out Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. My name is T.T.H. This is Marcus, and you're listening to Fallen Out Radio.
So I want to give a big shout out to our Patreon, Taisha Olet, and thanks so much for sponsoring the podcast. And today's episode, we're talking about how do you want to take this podcast? Do you want to talk about? He has stories, but do you want to get into like what's happening right now? I know we've been looking into those recently, right?
Well, I mean, I know we can tie it all in.
Right.
But yeah, I want to like get his stories out first, like right. Kind of tell those first. So because man, like we put this last episode out and it was supposed to be just Bigfoot stories, right? And then we ended up doing like half the episode ghost stories, right? And that episode just blew up like on the podcasting platforms. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let's get into that. Let's do some stories first.
Some stories. So
you want to just jump right into it, or
yeah. So I mean, we've grown up, and this is it's stupid because
obviously we've grown up.
I have all these stupid things in my life. So I always wore black ever since I was a kid until now. And
so,
then,
I mean, look, we're all wearing black. I mean, I know we're
I always wore like a lot of jewelry and these like cuffs and whatnot. And then we got into high school and Mom's like, why do you wear these all the time? And then like a couple of years later, she's like, your dad used to wear those in high school. But she's like, here's what we're wearing since came all the way up to his
I know, like she said the same thing to me because I was wearing those like studded like cuffs and bracelets.
Yeah.
And she was like, your dad used to have big ones. I pulled one out and it was freaking huge. I was like this.
And I wear black and Dad wears black all the time. Wow. And I always say that Dad he used to dress like a cartoon because you go into his closet.
It's just like, it's like almost like if you open up Peter Griffin's closet.
Yeah.
One solid shirt across and then the same pair of pants all the way across. It was like that.
And then lugs are freaking shoes like he's got on today.
That's all I had was lugs.
Only the past couple of years has he been wearing graphic tees.
I think we bought him all those.
At Walmart.
Yeah, we'll get these at Walmart. All right.
Oh shoot! All right, enough.
You were chilling out.
Enough roasting Dad.
Stupid.
So, we've heard these stories growing up, and this is the reason I mentioned that dressing in black and all that stuff is the conspiracy podcast. I think is a lot of it has to be credited towards Dad and Uncle Ben because we've grown up listening to these stories.
That's where my interest sparked from it.
Right. And then we had nowhere else to put these stories. And then we kind of just sparked this podcast. And then we mentioned Dad and Uncle Ben on the podcast a lot about how that had to have been our influence into
Yeah, I know it was
our
mine
interest. Yeah.
because like, always hearing these stories and stuff like, and then we talked to like people like growing up, like friends and everything,
Right.
and everybody'd all share these stories, and they were all almost the same, like encounters in the same places.
Right.
And then like when I go to school, those are the books I always checked out at the library. I was that kid like throw up like Bigfoot, Bigfoot books, UFO books and stuff like that constantly. Right. That's all I freaking read.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of where my interest kind of sparked, was from all those stories growing up.
So those of you who are new to the podcast, this is our dad, and he has another episode that was about Bigfoot and ghost stories.
Yeah.
And you have to go back and listen to that episode. And today's episode, there's another chapter we're jumping into, and we're talking about alien or UFO sightings. And you have UFO sightings as well as Bigfoot sightings, as well as ghost sightings. And it's just these stories are crazy. They're insane.
I don't think it's like, some people like, oh no, this person has so many stories, and then they think like, oh, maybe that person just making these things up. I think it's where that person lives.
Right.
Because around here, like, there's a lot of people that have similar stories or see the same things.
Because if you go into another city or talk to people online and you ask them, and we encounter this all the time, asking, especially now because we're interviewing artists, and we talk and we ask, we say, okay, so do you have any ghost stories or anything
paranormal
out of the ordinary? Yeah. And a lot of times they'll say no, because they're in different areas of Montana. And then we get into down more in the reservation areas, and there's tons more people having experiences, whether that's UFOs or Bigfoot or ghost stories. And the paranormal is a huge thing in Native American culture, is because they have a tie to spirituality, and they're like more open to seeing those things. And then
I think they're more open, like basically kind of taking that in, like knowing that is there,
right?
Because living in the area that we do, there's less lighting. So things are more visible. Like I remember there was a blackout in like California, and in a big place like big cities, a lot of them have never seen stars if they've never left the area. And when the lights went out, they were using their cell phones to call in and basically saying, "There's these things in the sky. There were stars. They're all stars. They're seeing stars. They're thinking they're UFOs and stuff." So I was oh my god, wow, really? But that's real. That really happened. So
wow.
If you move to a place like this, just stars everywhere. You can see everything. You can see stuff moving in the sky and stuff like that. So like it's a lot easier to see that stuff when you're in an area like this.
Yeah. So let's get into your first story. I know you have these stories, and the reason we want to get you on the podcast especially is because I want to document these stories and allow our kids and your grandkids to hear, especially years from now, as they'll hear these stories and paint a picture.
Kind of like how we heard them growing up.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like the girls, they right away, they wanted to hear these stories. So they wanted to watch this episode and stuff, or the last episode and stuff like that. So what would be let's do a build up. I don't want you to do your best story right out of the gate. Let's do a build up. What's the most mild sighting you have?
From a kid.
Right.
Okay. They had a disturbance about, how many miles would that be? A little over 20 miles towards Wyoming. A little town called Wyola.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, people don't realize these kids these days, even if they're in their 40s, don't remember, but I'm 56 right now.
Yeah.
And when I seen this was with my dad, because he was a police officer, and they called him, and back in the day, there was just a barely handful of cops, and they used their own cars for police cars.
Wow.
Yes. And so the thing is that the houses that you see right now, you don't see that many houses back in the day.
Right.
And that place down in called Wyola, there's just several houses and the one store and post alvas or we call that where the train stops, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's still kind of like that there.
Yeah,
Right.
it still is, but it was smaller then. And then the houses are further because they're country homes, and they even had it was a motel there. I remember they had a small motel there too.
Oh, cool. Weird. I didn't know that.
And well, this was when he got a call. This was late at night, and some lady called in. She was frantic, and so my dad, they told him. They said there's something going on. We better go check it out. And he says, "Come with me, champ. Go see what's going on over there." So I got in a police car, and I usually sit in the back seat just in case something happens, you know. And this time I sat in front, and
Craven.
and my dad was going, I think it was about 120 miles an hour all the way over there. And we got there real quick. And from a distance, I think it was about half a mile or more, that we seen some lights that were different colors on a telephone pole, on a mercury light.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Craven! She took off.
You can cut that out.
We're going to leave that in there.
That's so stupid. All right.
She took off.
And then, and
There's chicken on the table. Trying to get chicken.
and when I seen it, you know, I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, lights on. All I seen was just the lights, and the mercury light kept going dim and bright,
Oh, weird.
dim and bright. And when he was getting closer, he shut his lights off, and we cruised in there, and there was no other cars or nothing. And we slowly got to that, whatever that was, that closer and closer that he needed to get to see what it is. And he said, "Look at that," in our language. And I was just amazed of all the colors that were on the thing, and it was spinning, and these lights were hitting the ground, and it was just sitting on there. And the closer he got, the radio started staticking really bad, and he started shutting everything off, and he stopped. And we sat there, maybe I think it was about 100 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Don't move." All right. It just sat there and watched it. And then he got his shotgun out.
God.
He got his shotgun out and started putting slugs in there. And I was looking, and you can hear the click, click, and on, kept clicking. And then he just, you know, and he opened a door, and he says, "Put your hand over that the dome light." And so I put my hand over, and it turned on, and he just slowly closed the door, and he just stood there. And I thought he was going to shoot at it. And he was walking to it, and he got close to it, and then he brought that rifle up, and just then I seen something on the corner of my eye, and I just glanced over here, and here was whoever called it in. It was a home way out there. You can see it was dark, and then all you can see is just like curtain open up. Yeah. Just when I turned, that thing just went gone.
Wow.
And my dad just I wish he shot at it, then what would happen? You know?
Yeah, I would have shot back.
But it didn't have no motor noise or nothing. It just went.
Yeah, a lot of them I hear they're dead silent.
Was there a hissing noise when it took off?
The like the air, you know.
So you can hear like the whooshing of the air, like it was cutting through the air.
Real
Wow.
fast.
Wow.
And it was like gone right now. And he said, "Get off." And I got off, and I shut the door. He says, look at it. And man, it was moving.
Wow.
And it was gone. And
What year was that?
oh my God.
You're 56.
Yeah, I think I was only 7 years old.
Wow.
Wow.
And we came back. He got on the radio and called and told him that. He says, I'll talk to you about what we seen. And he went to the police station and he told them, they were just dumbfounded. They're like,
Wow.
they didn't believe him.
You know what's funny is recently I just talked to a friend and he told me a story. He was asking like, oh, you guys do this podcast, stuff like that. And I was like, yeah. And he started telling me stories. And one of the stories he told me was a story his grandfather told him. And he said he heard this story a lot. And he said, like he was kind of talking. He's like, yeah, he said that around their, I think their house or their farm, he said that they saw something like that, a craft. And he said it jumped really fast. I think it went over their kind of like their barn or whatever. And then it moved across the river, if I'm remembering right. But he said it was doing that. It was shooting lights out
strange.
like that.
Where was this at?
This was, man, I have to ask him, but it's not too far from here. And he said it was shooting lights around. And he said the same exact thing. And he said it just kind of like, it was gone.
His grandparents saw this?
Yeah. And then he said, these guys came. He said, I don't know. He said the only thing, everything I remember, he said these guys showed up in like suits and stuff. And he said they said they were called Blue Book or something like that.
Oh, funny.
I was like, wow. I was like, Project Blue Book came down to investigate that. And he told me like kind of like how old his grandpa was when that happened.
Right.
And that was the time that Project Blue Book was in effect.
I wonder if there's documents on it because
I know. That's what I was.
How old is he?
How old is he? Man, he's a younger guy. I think he's in his 20s. And his right now. And his grandpa was the one that saw this stuff.
I can answer that.
I think it was like in the 50s.
No. I can answer that. Because the person told me there was a bunch of people that gathered. Something was following the river with lights in it. And this was just 5 miles out of here.
Weird.
5, 6, yeah. And it was following the river. And
the Bighorn River?
That river.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Bighorn or
I
Little
think
Horn?
so, isn't it?
I think so.
The Bighorn, I thought was this side. It was Little Horn.
Oh, it's
Oh,
Little
yeah,
Horn.
that's right. You're right.
Yeah, and it was on above the water, and it just lit up the whole while it was coming.
Wow.
Yeah, and this guy was a chairman.
Whoa.
Oh, wow, really?
I did it again. Woo.
I talked about the pole,
Uh-huh.
and he happened to have been kind of off to the side when I was talking with your uncle Ben and another person at the gas station was working, and he just overheard it, and he came right in, and he told his story.
Wow.
And he passed away here a while back, and he was in his 90s.
Wow.
So this had to have been in between 60 and 70.
Wow.
I'm going to have to ask this guy what year that was. Because
Yeah.
he said he told him, like,
Yeah.
he said he knew the story by heart. And, like, I was hoping to at least, like, have him tell that story on here. So maybe, like, if I talk him into it, maybe he'll actually come on and tell
He's
that story.
local, right?
He's local, yeah.
Let's hope he gets on the podcast.
Yeah. I know where he lives. I'll just go knock on his door.
That's
Go over there
the
with
one.
our mics.
I'm pretty sure that's the one, because a lot of people got together when they seen it, and it just started chain reaction, and then they started going towards it
Uh-huh.
across the highway, and the highway back then was just a 2-lane road right there.
Oh, wow.
Where you could just go across into the yeah. That's the highway back in the day.
Yeah, and I think I remember him saying that when they were there looking around, he said they're even looking around where they said the lights were hitting and stuff.
Yeah.
Seeing what they were doing, I guess. I don't know.
It's
kinda weird.
what I heard was my dad was in when he was military, and he came across my story, not my story, but when I talked about it,
Mhm.
and he had a serious face on, and he says, "Tell me about what you seen." I said, "We're sitting there, and the housing's there, and this I thought we thought it was an airplane,
Mhm.
but it was a solid light." And I said it was going across, the hills way on the other side, they called Antenna Hill. And that light was on this side. And it stopped, and then it turned back again.
Wow.
Straight across.
So it was on the side closest to them on the other side of the hill.
This side. And you can see the gaps where the sky shows, and you're still going straight.
Wow.
And when
Weird.
that
So I think it was close.
yeah, your uncle was his pickup, and everybody was at the house, jumped in the back of the box, and I think there was 4 of us in the front. We took off, trying to see where it went, and we hit that road and where they have this Crow Fair, and we took off that side road going toward to the Pine Hills, and we're kind of going towards that where then we seen something glowing kind of off to the side there, so we shut the lights off and we kind of drifted then on. He threw it in neutral and he shut the engine off and the crows, we couldn't see anything, but you can see the light.
Wow.
It looked like it landed. So we stopped. We all got off, and there was a bunch of girls in there, and my cousin and cousins and all friends and stuff. We all jumped off and we started walking, looking around and walking, and this thing was above the ground, hovering, and it was lights were hitting the ground like it was looking for something. It was like minerals or something.
Oh, interesting.
That is weird.
Yeah.
That is.
And then the thing was going the other way real slow. It had a noise, and we were all quiet, just stunned. And then one of them, we were all quiet, and one of them was like, "Hey!"
Oh God, there has to be that one person.
And everybody screamed. The thing turned around. It was like,
So you can actually see the thing turn.
Oh,
yeah, it
wow.
turned around and it started coming. It just didn't go like this and come out. It was going that way, and it turned and came, and those lights were still doing this, and then it came and started coming up,
Oh, scary.
and and we all and then we started taking off. One of them hit your Uncle Ben and ended up on the ground. He was running in place.
On the ground?
He was freaked out, and then
Oh, my God.
he grabbed him. He was dragging him. We jumped in the pickup. This time there was 6 of us in there. They tried to pile into the truck.
Like nobody wanted to be in the back, like out in the open.
Just running.
Then they all jumped him in the back, and he started to drag everybody in. He says, "Yeah," and then he took off, and this thing followed us. It came up and he started following us, and Ben was going all over the road and missed the road, and oh my God, he was going so fast, and everybody was flying up in the air in the back, and oh my God, and then the thing just went right over us, gone.
Did it make a noise when it flew over you, or
It's just like
the same thing?
whoosh, yeah.
I wonder if that whooshing noise is what Bob Lazar is hearing back in the 80s or 60s, right? 80s. Is Bob Lazar was working on Los Alamos base, and well, that's where he said he was, and he said he was working on an aircraft,
Reverse engineering.
right? And his story is crazy. Have you heard his story?
This is what it went to from your grandpa. Your grandpa says, "Tell me the story." I told him that, and then he looked at me. He said, "The military has this craft that's quiet, and what it does is it looks what's in the ground.
Oh, interesting.
The minerals that are in the ground."
Didn't he train in Area 51?
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
didn't know that?
Hold
Yeah.
on a second.
Man, I was like, man, I gotta bring this up because I knew he was gonna freak
Hold
out like
on.
that.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, Grandpa trained at Area 51.
New Mexico or down there. Yes.
How do I not in
Yeah,
Vegas?
You ask your grandma; she'll tell you. And he has pictures of they were there when he was in the military. He was an officer, so he went and got his training down there, and you can see him with M16s and
I saw the pictures.
all that stuff. And
I feel like if there's any moment where my head explodes, right now is it.
I was like, man, I know he doesn't know this. I'm going to bring this up.
How do you know?
This is what I do, man.
Yeah, but that's
Has he ever talked about what he's seen there? Or
no.
I wonder if he's.
But all this that come upon, he knew something about that. He said the military had something that
Wow.
didn't make no noise, and he said there's lights that are. He said, was the lights on the sides just like that one we seen? And I says, no, the lights were underneath it,
Wow.
and they were hitting the ground.
And he was a Marine. He was also a judge, right?
Yeah, chief.
And he's a
And
police officer.
He was a police officer. So he was a well-rounded and well-respected person in the area, and especially in his fields. And to know that now that he trained there,
yeah.
Yeah, and the older people know that he's tough as nails,
right,
and he doesn't get scared.
right,
So the things that we go into and all that, because he was a diver, he was a demolition diver in the Marines,
right,
and then that
Recovery, too.
no, when he got out, then he started his trade. He started using it for rescue and recovery of bodies in the water, drowning and all that stuff. So,
And you, as a young boy, would go and help him recover bodies.
yes, I had a first hand, and the first one was it was a sad one because it was my cousin that drowned, and I think she was 4 years old,
Yeah,
and
right,
the dog was playful, and when she got to the bank, the dog pushed her.
Wow.
And then I'm the one. We raked the river for a week. I didn't sleep for a week.
Wow.
Because we come back and kept breaking the river, and we put a fence down here in Hardin, and we raked it from where the dog took my dad. The dog was freaking out while the back. That's when they had the flood back in '76, I think it was, when the dam broke.
Right.
And most of the people's we call that their basements were full of water, and they think that she got into that and couldn't get out. So there's a lot, and it just took off like people want to help and look for her. So they got together, and the dog. What my dad noticed, the dog was acting up.
Wow.
And kept crying and kept hitting everybody like that, and they kept bushing it and all. And his dog was real playful, and it's my uncle's dog, his brother, the youngest brother.
Mm-hmm.
And here, my dad says, come with me. All right, so and that dog took off down the road, and we're going. And he kind of said it under his breath, but I heard him. He says, this dog knows something. And we're walking, and the dog kept coming back to us and kept running, back, forth. And we walked all the way to this house that had a trail to the bank. And it was drop off, and then it was right there. And he said, stay right there. And then he started investigating, and he seen some child's footprints there, shoe footprints, that didn't turn back.
Wow.
And he seen a dog, and it started whimpering and crying right there.
Wow.
And he says, this is where she fell in. And then that's where it started. And then that's my first hand of touching somebody that's passed, drowned.
Right.
We raked that river a whole week. And then the last time we raked it, this is funny, the boat died before we got to this tree that it was like a brush that was in the water, kept going up and down because of the waves and stuff. And when we came by, it died. So my dad was trying to start it, and I was at the head, and the boat started turning. And then it was my uncle and a relative that was in there. They were all military.
Wow.
And one is a future chairman. And he was in there. And there were cops, all of them. And when we were going like that, I was sitting at the head of the boat, and he was trying to start it, and we're going past that, just almost past that where that brush was going, and then it came like that. I seen a little hand, and that's when I screamed, "Dad!" And I ran and jumped past him and hit the water, and when I jumped off the boat, when I was diving to the body, my dad says, "Don't look at her face."
Mm-hmm.
And when I hit the water like this, I was looking right at her face, and she wasn't even gone.
Wow.
Yeah, because her eyes were open and just looking at me. And I grabbed her and her body was frozen because it was cold. I just finally unloosened her from that brush. And it came up, the boat started. Remember I said the boat died?
Oh, yeah, the boat died.
Yeah.
If that didn't, we probably missed her again.
Wow.
So like it like kind of died for a reason.
It's like, I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And well, we turned back, or they turned back, and I still had her. And when I got to the boat, my dad and uncles grabbed her, and they put her in. It sounded like a log, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Log hitting inside the tin
Wow.
boat. It's like, like, and then they grabbed me and threw me in. I think I was 11 years old then, and I mean, she was like, oh, their hands were like that, and I never forgot that. And I sat there, and they got quiet and took off, and he got on the radio and called the deputy sheriff here in town, and he was there, close to there, and he rushed to it. He's behind a forestry, and my dad just hauled butt right and hit that bank, and that boat was on the ground, and we stopped, and he sat there, and his brother was looking down, too, and he said, "Get out." Told him to get out, and because he's the oldest, and they got out, and I was still in the boat when they got out, and I was going to get out, and he helped me. He said, "Sit right here," and then he went over and picked up her dress, and you can see the scratch marks on her back, the dog.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, okay, I remember.
And then he sat there, and then he got off, and he was sitting by, and that deputy came, and he was close friends with him, and he held him, and he started crying. It's the first time I heard my dad cry, and he just cried and just let it all out, and then I just sat there with the body.
Wow.
And growing up, when we're kids, when we go to the morgue, I was taught, if it's a close family, to kiss them on the forehead and say goodbye, touch their hand. And I was never scared to touch bodies. My dad's the one that taught me that.
You taught us that growing up too.
Yeah, I think that's why I was the same way, because watching you.
Yeah, we still do that.
Yeah, and it's like release, and it won't make you, it won't bother you of them being gone.
Mm-hmm.
It was just remembering. That's how you take them further. Remembering them. You don't forget about them. It's always in their head, and that's what I was brought up, and that's why I wasn't scared or afraid. And then other bodies that we found, at the big dam and stuff. I was with my dad, and I got to do that, and I started seeing and how they say the bodies start coming up because of the gases that are in there decompose and stuff. I got to see the first hand of that.
Wow.
How they start coming up, and their hands are kind of halfway up, and they're off the ground, just gradually coming up every day. So if somebody drowns and they can't find them, that means they're stuck under a log or something. Because my cousin happened that to her, and we missed her, where she was jammed into her log.
Wow.
And then here somebody just happened to go and see that spot, and here she was in there, but she was gone it was a summertime, I think it was. Yeah, it was. And she was already decomposed pretty good, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I had first hand enough recovery and stuff, and then they asked me, does this bother my dad? Or they're Christians, Pentecostal, and I was taught never to bother ghosts. Okay, don't like, hey, they started.
You almost scared me just now.
and that's what they taught us not to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
because there are spirits. My dad told me. He says there are spirits that all they needs to be a little pull on them is that they're going to start bothering you.
Yeah. Kind of that acknowledgement, I think, is what it is.
Yeah. And the thing is, then they asked me, is it the when you touch the bodies that are in water or whatever, and you go see the bad accidents that these people died, because I seen the accidents, real bad accidents, car accidents, people thrown out, half gone, people that were smashed on a train and their bodies smashed, and the train's parked on top of them, they're still alive. And they bring the wife, and I seen it. When my dad went over there, and they brought the wife in to say her goodbye.
Wow.
And then that train pulled and he died. And that was the first when I seen that person can live.
Yeah, I heard stories like that quite a bit.
You told
it's possible.
you told one too of a guy's head was kept on, and you just touched the shoulder and his head just rolled back and clean cut.
It was
in the sports car, wasn't he?
No, this one was a rollover, and the guy was still locked up inside the hanging onto his steering wheel, and your mom or your mom, my mom's that when she remarried, her husband was ran a garage, and he was there, and then your guy's grandpa was there, and I happened to be there, and he was talking to him, and he says, I didn't get too close to it. He says I kind of glanced at him. He said he still looks like he's alive. My dad says, all right, and he walked over, and he said when I got to work with him, my stepdad, he said he told me the story, and because I was just a little kid then, I remember, but I remember the noise, and I remember you were there. And he says, yeah, and he was telling his story to these guys, and he said, yeah, his old man went over there, and he says he looked at him, and he went and touched his neck for a pulse, and he said his head fell back. And it sounded like a bunch of glasses broke inside of his neck.
Wow. Yeah, it sounded like broken glass. I remember you telling me about that.
Oh my gosh.
He said, I never forgot that noise. I had nightmares.
Oh my God.
Give me nightmares too, man.
But guess what? What happened to me? My nightmares, I didn't have any. All the stuff I seen. People have torn up and this and that and all this. And guess what scared me? They asked me, does that bother you? I says, no. I says, you know what bothered me? I said, my mom says, what are you doing? We were going, we're in Billings. It was at night, and we're going by Central by that big long cemetery. And I looked over, and I started hiding my face and scooching down. He says, what are you doing? He says, Ma, there's vampires and werewolves in those guys.
He was saying that like what he was afraid of was vampires and like werewolves and stuff
coming out of the ground.
I was like,
the movies are the one that messed me up. These didn't bother me.
That's so weird.
that's almost like me. Like things happen. Like when things happen,
Right.
I'm like, like I know it's happening, and I just ignore it.
Right.
Like there was things that was happening where like doors would be slamming,
Right.
and I literally, I know it's happening right there, but it doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
But what scared me is all the time was when I was growing up watching freaking Friday the 13th and stuff like that. I'm always feeling like Jason's behind me or something outside. That scared me. So like when actually like real like paranormal activity was happening, it didn't scare me.
Right. It's never bothered me either, but come this Halloween, Marcus.
I know, like
we're going ghost hunting.
Like I got creeped out.
Mark's we're gonna see.
I mean, we witnessed firsthand.
We're gonna put Marcus to the test.
Like already we witnessed firsthand, using paranormal equipment.
Right.
We caught, a lot of things. I caught a full apparition on my phone.
Yeah.
It looks like a Scooby-Doo Phantom. This thing literally, you could see it.
There's things that happen in this house, and it's like it happens all the time.
I know. I mean, I can do things like that, and it's like it doesn't bother me. I mean, I literally went into Zach Bagan's basement, and that didn't bother me. Like I can do stuff like that. That doesn't bother me. But things like freaking Michael Myers, Jason, that scares the hell out of me. I don't know why. I mean, I like that. I'm a fan. I watch it. Like Jason's my favorite.
Is
that's what creeps me out, man.
We're gonna go ghost hunting, and then when Marcus has his first jump and scare, I'm gonna cut this clip right here. And I'm gonna put it with that. It doesn't scare me.
It doesn't scare me. It just freaking straight up shriek.
But I want to get back to Bob Lazar's story. This guy has an insane story, and the most famous UFO. They were thinking he was a conspiracy theorist. He was discredited. He wasn't a scientist, and he's really a scientist.
Yeah.
Like there's documentaries on him where he's a scientist. He knows how to do things. He was in the paper before he worked at Los Alamos, and he was the reason they recruited him.
Strapped a jet engine on his car.
Right. It's a real jet engine, and he was able to put that on his car,
to put it, literally attach it to his vehicle and get it to go.
Right. And it worked. And they recruited him, and as soon as he came out saying that he was working on aircraft in Area 51, as soon as he said he was at Area 51,
how old is he?
He's got to be 60s, 70s, maybe.
Okay, when did he do that?
It was the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
The thing
might have been 70s, 80s.
Maybe.
Okay, the thing is, when you look in the history of the cars
Right.
back in the day, they did make a jet engine
Right.
car.
He used a real jet engine.
Yeah,
Like a real jet.
and then the government think that wasn't right, so they had to shit can all those, dismantle them,
Right.
and a couple of them survived. I think they said 11 of them, and I seen one on, I think it was on Jay Leno.
Uh-huh.
And
And
it was a jet engine.
Wow.
It wasn't like fast, he said, but it got to move the car and stuff like that. And I mean, it was a fancy looking car.
Right.
Yeah.
And after he came out saying that he was working on
The cat.
Oh, okay. Door open.
No, I saw him going.
Right after he said that he was working on aircraft out there, is they took his credentials from the college he was working at or studying at. They took his credentials saying he was a scientist, and his social security number, everything's gone.
Yeah.
He doesn't exist.
You know what? I think what they wanted to discredit him, they should have took maybe his, where he went to school, stuff like that.
Right.
They shouldn't have took his social security. They shouldn't have took his basically everything
still
to make
alive.
him like not exist.
Right.
I think they went too far, and then that's where they kind of made like, okay, what the hell's going on?
Right, but there was
Stupid.
yeah, they went too far, and
They
now they're
went
like, it's
through-
obvious. It's so obvious that they did that.
They went through the school logs, removed all of his signatures because he's got to sign into the college. And they have one.
They have one that he's actually had a school log or a log in one of those books that he was there.
Yeah, with his best
They
friend.
missed
something like
one.
That, yeah.
So
And he was
there
there.
is proof that he was there.
And he also came out saying that the Area 51 had this hand scanning thing of where everyone's bone structures in their hands are unique, just like a fingerprint. Like the distance between your index and your pinky and all that kind of stuff. And no one believed in this. It's like sci-fi. He's making things up. And come this past like 5 years, the military finally released that they have this technology. They had it since the 70s or 80s.
Like, that's what I told you. Like, they always have things like maybe 50 years before like, they even put it out. Like, things like we use now, these cell phones, like FaceTiming, stuff like that. They had all this kind of stuff back then. And they're just bringing them out for the public.
Remember who got to have that loosened up and released it? Trump.
Yeah.
He's the one that release all that stuff.
Right.
And they had to.
Yeah.
And now look at that military's that's seen the UFOs and chasing them and all this, and now they have to report it to us.
Right. And pre his presidency, is the U.S. wasn't allowed to release any documents within 50 years. So 50 years ago, it would be classified for 56 years.
Yes.
So that means within your lifetime, you're probably not going to hear about
That's
it.
exactly what I told you. Like, it's always like a 50-year period.
Right.
It seems like.
So
if you look back, it's always like a 50-year period.
So everyone's kind of wondering, like, okay, so we have 9/11. What happened there? We have all these other catastrophes. Like, what happened there? Like, when are we going to hear about those? And it's probably not going to happen for 50, 60 years still. I mean, there's still got to be a lock on those things. But with UFOs, aliens, things of that nature, it's kind of like, okay, we'll give you those so you can shut your mouth about all these.
And you want to know what's funny?
Operations.
Is when they finally said that, like, okay, we're gonna give you this, or no, we'll give you that, and they started coming out saying this is real, that's real. Nobody cared.
Right.
They're like, we know, we already know, we already knew that was real, we already knew that was this. And everybody was like, so we know.
The reason I mentioned Bob Lazar is because he mentioned the aircraft he's working on, and he said that this thing would hover and it'd be silent, but when you get under it, there'd be a hissing noise. And he said that's all you hear is this hissing noise. And he said you can look at it straight on from the bottom up at its belly, and you can't see the craft. He said it's like it's bending the light, and he said you'll see the ceiling right through it. But if you look at it from the side, you can see the craft, but when you get under it, it's like it's not even there.
It's kind of like the...
It's cloaking?
No. It's like the Chevy when you go and look behind it and your trailer's behind it, but it's not there.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like how.
Yeah.
How in the hell do they do that? And then it shows the pickup on top,
right,
looking down.
And he was thinking they had like it's either they don't know. There's no propulsion. He believes that it was like a gravity kind of thing they're working on.
Like it makes its own like artificial gravity.
Right.
Is kind of how he said it.
Right.
So whatever, like if the gravity's on the bottom of the ship, if it wanted to move like, left, it would tilt the bottom part of the ship to the left and it would fall that way. Rather than fly that way, it would fall.
Right.
So if it wanted to go to your right, it would face the bottom of the ship right and it would fall that way.
Right.
Kind of like what you guys do is take two magnets and it start doing this stuff.
Right. And you know who was fascinated before any of this technology with UFOs? It was Hitler.
Oh, that's right.
Hitler had the top scientists, the German scientists, no question, they're the top scientists in the world. And Hitler was obsessed with creating a time machine. And what he did was he made like a serious like UFO looking thing, right?
Yeah.
And
that's
and
right.
he was obsessed with time traveling. He was obsessed with these aircrafts, and the speculation was he was able to make a machine. There's photos of it. There's photos of it actually working and him actually using these propulsions. And they said that he was trying to use gravity in some way, right? Wow. So back then in like the 20s, 30s, Hitler era, so they say, okay, he built the machine, right?
Okay.
This machine's real, it's documented, but it disappeared back then. And it resurfaced in the past 10 years in a mountain.
Yeah.
And they don't know how it got there, and it was pristine condition.
Over there.
Right. Kind of like he actually got it to work, and it just like right to now.
Yeah. What they've been doing is trying to find all this stuff that Hitler stashed. And he used the railway Okay.
Right.
And some of the railways been moved around, and they said they had documents of this is kind of weird, huh? When they made Captain America, when he was in that stealth,
Oh, right.
that was real. Hitler made that.
Yeah.
It was huge, and when they found it, it was in a cave, that was parked there. And think of that from there, and then our stealths are made.
Yeah.
It's like almost like they reverse engineered it, like
Yeah.
how Bob Lazar said he reverse engineered
Yeah.
this craft.
Right.
But it's funny how you say that he wanted to use gravity
Yeah.
for this craft to propel this craft, and all of a sudden Bob Lazar is trying to reverse engineer a craft that uses gravity to propel itself.
Right.
So this is like kind of what I was talking about when I was telling you, like, no, everybody heard this before. Cito freaked out about it when I said that I don't believe aliens are what we believe,
Right.
what people perceive them to be. Like, I think there is, like, you know, maybe a living organism on a planet, another planet or something like that, but not like this big old giant freaking humanoid. Like,
So you don't think aliens exist?
I don't think that's maybe they're not to that extent, but I believe there's probably something out there. I believe that.
Okay, so there's something out there just growing another planet. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, no. What I'm saying is, I don't believe they're the ones that are actually piloting these crafts. I don't think that. I don't think it's them.
So, but
I think it is like maybe government, military, or people like Hitler that would want to build something like that.
right, but Bob Lazar was on credit saying that these machines were shot down by aircraft,
Yeah.
and there was one predating. This was thousands of years.
Yeah, but that's the thing that kind of always gets me is like, okay, I think of this theory in my head, like, okay, maybe it's government, maybe it's
Right.
military, maybe somebody built it like Hitler, and you know, maybe we got our hands on it and we reverse engineered it to use that technology.
Right.
Maybe the Tic Tac is just somebody testing this thing out. You
Right.
know?
I do believe
Stuff
that.
like that.
I believe. Well, you're getting into two different things here. You're trying to say that aliens are a different thing, but you're also trying to talk about how these aircrafts are military and alien, which they are.
Yeah.
And-
I'm not saying that these crafts are alien. I'm saying these crafts are,
Right.
are military.
Yes.
Or either some really like freaking evil genius like Hitler that's trying to build something like this. Like,
Right.
that's kind of like where I always kind of see it.
Maybe he's alien.
I'm always thinking like,
you're taking this right now.
no, that's not where I'm taking this. What I'm saying is I think that these crafts that we're seeing aren't alien or extraterrestrial in any
Right.
way. Maybe they're some kind of man-made craft.
Right.
But it's just something way ahead of their time.
Yes, I
That's
believe
like kinda
those
what I
theories
think.
too. But
every time we come back to, okay, they found these hieroglyphics or these like Native American, petroglyphs, stuff like that,
Right.
that are showing alien crafts.
Yes.
That's where my whole theory starts falling apart, because I'm like, okay, well, why do they have that? You know?
so you're getting into two different fields here.
Because we know, we know
Egyptian have them
even
too.
Egyptian.
All right, let's put a pause on Marcus here for a second.
Shut up! I'm trying to work through this. He shut the wrong one off. All right, so like that's what I'm saying, because like when we get into like Native American legend, lore, their stories and their history,
Right.
is they always write what they see.
Yes.
So that's where my theory of this being the government could fall apart, because if this is like the government or military or somebody like Hitler making these things, this predates them by 1,000 years.
Right. So I'm trying to get a hold on
that
what
thought always falls apart
you're
on
trying
me.
to say. I don't know what you're trying to say is so you don't believe aliens are flying the crafts, but you believe they did?
No, that I'm saying, like, I want to believe that it's not them.
Right. You don't
Because I don't want to believe that they're actually flying these crafts, like something
Right.
came from a different planet and flying these crafts. I want to believe that they're military, something more
Right.
tangible in a way.
So everyone's alien sightings, things of nature, how would you debacle that one?
I would say like I always want to believe that you see like something like.
So are you trying to say you don't believe in aliens right now? Is that what's happening?
I'm saying that maybe they're how do you say
Misinterpreted,
not misinterpreted, but
misrepresented.
no, not misrepresented. Like confusing something with something else.
Right.
So maybe I'm almost thinking if they see something that's humanoid, that looks, creepy, scary, ugly, it's more demonic. Like some other kind of demonic creature. That's like what I was kind of.
This is the whole theory.
Yeah.
Is there was a famous minister by the name of Benny Hinn who believes that UFOs are demonic, which could beg the question that if they have these aircrafts that are able to fly these things, they could be demonic. And that's the whole theory, is that they're already got into this whole thing that there's a whole division of angels, right?
Yeah.
And there's 5 to 7. I'm trying to miss the number here.
Basically mimicking God.
Right. And there's also divisions of, this isn't a proven theory yet, is there's divisions of demons, but there's the demons mentioned in the Bible are portrayed as having the body of a man and horse bodies. That's how they were portrayed.
Like a centaur.
Right. And
Minotaur.
Right.
Type deal. Yeah.
And these predated humans and also predated the dinosaurs. And this was in the creation of the earth. And this is in Genesis. Genesis 1 was
they already
creation.
Inhabited the earth.
Right. Genesis 1 was creation. Genesis 2 was restoration. Is the earth was void and without form, meaning that something happened because God doesn't create anything that's not perfect. So between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, there was destruction and or Satan's falling. And later on in Genesis, it talks about God turned the earth upside down and all its inhabitants, meaning that's where the demons come from now.
Yeah.
And so there's like this, and there's also fallen angels, which are basically archangels. That's where I
kind of came out when you were talking about how demons were disembodied.
Right.
You're saying, so like, no, what they're seeing, what people are seeing aren't demons. Then you were like saying like, maybe they saw something that looked like a rake,
right.
And you're saying that can't be a demon because demons are disembodied. And that's when I told you, well, what's a fallen angel?
Right.
And then he was like, blew his mind right there. He was kind of like, oh, well, maybe that's what they're seeing,
Right. But it's demons can't manifest as a full bodied person,
like us as a person.
But angels can.
Yeah.
And fallen angels could have that power. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
It's like you can't go into those waters if you don't know yet, because if you don't have those scriptures, you don't have those backings on it, then you can't say it.
Yeah, that's why I said it's just a theory.
Right, it's a theory.
Yeah, devil's the fallen angel.
Right,
yeah.
He is, and he was the only angel to have 2 positions in heaven. He was an archangel and he was a worshipped angel.
Yeah,
which means he was the only one given the.
He was like the head of their worship.
Right, he was the only one who was permitted to walk on the footstones of God's throne, and
Did think
he was God's favorite.
Yeah,
and didn't he think he was too good?
Right,
looking,
and then everyone thinks that everybody thinks that the first sin of the Bible was what the hell was it?
Murder?
No, it wasn't murder. That's Cain and Abel. That's before Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve was that's where the first sin, they say, right? Disobedience. But the first sin of the Bible was actually jealousy.
Yeah,
is the devil was jealous of God, and that's what happened.
And he got cast out.
Right, and this is where you get the whole theory of the angel, or
this is Sparta hit him.
And this is where you get the whole theory of this is our theory. I mean,
Zeus kicked him out.
Okay, we're getting like way off. All right,
and this is I haven't heard this theory anywhere besides our podcast, because I've studied demonology growing up. I've studied the angels growing up, and this is the only, we haven't read this anywhere. There's no theory out there that depicts demons as being alien or aliens being demons.
I heard one other person mention that he believes the same thing.
Right.
And he actually has a podcast too.
Oh, cool.
And so when I heard that, I was like, okay, somebody else kind of thinks the same way. Because when they brought up aliens and stuff, he's like, well, my whole take on that. And he said he believes that kind of stuff is demonic. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not the only one that thinks that, Like, I think that stuff like that is demonic. That was just like a new theory, like what I was saying, like maybe that's just government, that like recently came up within the past, like when we started doing this stupid podcast. So before that, like what I thought was maybe it's demonic, maybe these things that we're seeing are demonic. because they're saying I was thinking that maybe what they were doing, like what these like demons and stuff were doing, was trying to make people question God.
Right.
Like, well, okay, if God created everything, God created Earth, then what are those?
Yep.
Right.
Trying to make you question that.
Yes.
And that is like one of the main things that the devil or demons would try to get you to do, is to try to question God.
Right.
And question your belief and question what you believe in the Bible and stuff like that, you know? So
Right.
I feel like that's what is one of their goals was to try to make you question that.
And the funny thing is, the Pope, and in recent years, has declared that UFOs are angelic.
Yeah.
And this sparked a huge controversy across
Oh man, that was like
across all these ministers talking about they're not angelic and they believe they're demons, they're demonic and things of that nature. And they're trying to pull that in and saying UFOs are angelic. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing angels fly, which doesn't align with biblical beliefs. It's like you don't see angels, right? Paul, we're trying to get into like a whole freaking biblical thing here, but Paul was
Would you say about not seeing angels?
you can see angels, right?
Okay.
The angels do visit you because they visited prophets in the Bible,
Yep.
things of that nature.
No. I'll throw this at you.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Yes, I do believe you can see angels. I
Yeah.
believe they can visit you and you can see angels.
No.
Right.
This is how it came in, and I was scared. But when I scared went away because I knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I came home in the morning from work about 4 a.m.
Right.
and it was quiet in town. And got to the trailer, and your Uncle Ben was next door in his trailer, and I knew he wasn't up. And I got in the house, and I started just getting ready to,
Yeah.
and then I was gonna, use the bathroom. And I mean, when you tell a story, you know right to what had happened,
Right.
the story, and somebody's making it up, you'll know.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody goes to what happens, you remember
Right.
all the way to that, but not past it. That's kind of weird how you don't go past that memory. It's from one start to then. And the thing was is that when I was in the bathroom, it had big gaps on the door.
I remember that house.
Yeah, and the bottom.
Yeah.
And then
It was like about an inch high almost.
yeah,
Right.
and then our bedroom had that big gap on top, and so I was in the bathroom, and I was, I was human and ready
Yeah.
to use number 2 sat on a pot
Yeah.
and just ready to go. And then guess what? I see the light. The hallway was dark. The bedroom's dark. The whole trailer was dark. Just the bathroom was on. Okay, Mom had the whole lights off and Dolores was I think she was only 2 or 3. I don't remember, but she couldn't sleep, so she was sleeping with Mom. And the thing was, when I was going, and then I seen the light, and it looked like a spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
real slow. And I says, why does he have a spotlight next door, I thought he was messing with me. But the spotlight, there was 2 windows in that trailer.
Those weren't near that bathroom door.
Yeah,
Right.
and yeah, it was sideways. And the light, you can see it, and then the light start getting stronger and stronger. Like, the spotlight, when it hits, it's really strong. But when it on the ends, kind of like dim.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of almost looked like. But when it caught my eye, it was like the bottom and the top. I was like, and then it got brighter and brighter and bright. It was at the door.
Wow.
And I was like that, and next thing you know, I seen light in the bedroom, and our windows are covered because when I sleep, it's always dark when you sleep better.
It's still covered. Let's hang.
Yeah. And I caught it as like this, and the light was dimming on this side, but it was in the bedroom. Then your sister woke up and started laughing and talking.
Wow.
It was comforting
Right.
her. And it just sent chills up
Were you scared?
It almost, when it happened like that right
Yeah.
there, and then I felt comfort,
Right.
and I didn't move where I was sitting. I was just ready to go, and that's when it happened. I just didn't go, and I looked this way, and it was bright, and it was like I heard her giggling, laughing, and talking,
Wow.
and then the light start fading out, and I just stood up and went right out and into the bedroom real quick,
Wow.
and baby was already laying down. I mean, she had been propped up to laugh and talk.
Weird.
And here I shook. Your mom woke up and, what is it? I said, you better hear this. And I was so overjoyed, I almost cried. And she said, what is it? And she sat up and baby girl still, I mean, she was just out. And a light, and she knew it right away. You seen an angel? He came in the bedroom and talking with Dolores. And it just touched me so hard that I wouldn't believe it. Yes, angels will come in to comfort.
Yeah.
That was just because Christianity is strong in a family. It protects what you do. And Mom used to put anointing oil in all four corners of the boundary of the property. So anything that's trying to hinder you, or people come into, you know what I mean, harm
Right.
you or something, they come to that spot. They just get detoured. Do you know what I mean? Detoured means something in their mind just like
Yeah.
go this way. And the people that are Christians know that about, you know.
Yeah.
And when that happened, and she says, and then she was all, you know, lit up because when I said, Rachel, I came in,
Wow.
and Dolores was laughing and talking. And then she said, what happened then? And then the lighting just started fading, and then it got quiet.
Wow.
And then I'm in here. So that's what happened about visiting.
Right. You go to the whole story there. I wasn't trying to say that you don't get visitations to angels or don't see angels. Is you don't see them flying like a UFO.
No.
You don't see them out there lurking in
When
the
he
fields.
came out,
No.
when he came out and said that they're angelic,
Right.
like I got the image in my mind. What he was trying to say was that there's an angel piloting a freaking
Yeah.
UFO, and I was like, "What the hell?" You know?
Right.
That makes you mad.
And I was like,
Right.
Really? I was like,
Yes.
Right.
I was kind of just wowed. Like, did this guy
They're
really
there,
say this?
and
Yeah.
if they want to show themselves, they'll appear.
Yeah.
And the
They
reason
don't-
I
they don't
say-
come down on a freaking
The reason I
saucer.
say is you don't see them, like you don't just stumble upon them. They're there for a reason.
Yes.
They come to either deliver a message, they come to fight a battle, and everybody has, it's in the Bible, you have a legion of angels. You know how much that is? That's 6,000 angels per person, right? And one angel in the Bible killed 135,000 men. But you don't just stumble upon them. Paul was he was persecuted because he wouldn't reveal what he saw when he had his visions in heaven, seeing these angels, and he was scared to death of these things, right? And you see in the Bible when an angel visits you in earth, is a lot of times you're not gonna feel overjoyed. Because these things they call them terrible in appearance. It means they're awesome in appearance. Is when you see them, they're a being. They're made not like a person. They call them beasts.
They're made not like something of this world.
Right. So when you see them, most likely you being a person, you're gonna be scared to death. And it's happened in the Bible. Is they were scared when they seen Jesus walking in the water. Was it Paul or who saw him walking in the water? He was in the boat.
Oh man, I can't remember.
And he saw him on the water and he thought he was a ghost and he was scared to death on the boat, even though it was Jesus walking in the water. Is that you can have these experiences. So if people are seeing certain things like this, are they seeing an angel? Are they seeing a demon? Are they seeing alien? Is a lot of times you don't really have that grasp on what you're
On which one it is.
yeah, what you're seeing. And you have all these experiences and people, and I don't believe that UFOs are angelic. I don't believe
think
that
so,
they're, and I don't believe that them seeing these, and there is videos of people seeing fallen angels of what they categorize as like a demon. Well, it is basically demonic as an alien. And how do you categorize those between aliens? It's like it's hard to blur those.
Like there was this one I told him, like, he hates this video. There's this guy that comes in his backyard. You can see it. And he said this thing was in his house before.
Yeah, Dad showed me that one.
Yeah, and then and he had that video.
Remember the Bigfoot gray entity where that thing's lurking in his backyard and it's hunched over and it's like crawling, recording,
and then he has his iPad recording
in his backyard and he calls his pastor.
And when the pastor starts praying, this thing starts reacting. So that's how you know right there. That's a red flag. That thing is demonic. It's reacting to his prayers. Mm-hmm. If you even say the name, like they they say, if you say the name Jesus, it'll throw him back 50 feet.
Right.
Yes. Every time he said.
And when this guy started praying in tongues, this demonic looking entity started flinching and twitching and started backing up, and it started crawling back into the darkness.
Right.
And that video creeped me the hell out, man. I'm not gonna lie, man. That creeped me out.
Right.
Stuff like that would creep me out.
Do you remember what I talked about of what happened in the house?
Which time?
When I said when I woke up and I didn't want to wake your mom, but somebody was standing right there in front of me.
Yep,
and
I remember.
And the weird thing was about this person standing there. What I seen was like this,
looked like a beast.
The show when Wolverine, that other guy that was blue.
You're talking about Beast?
Yeah, the blue one. His outline, his hair and everything, the buffed and all. He was standing there right there in the doorway, and I thought, I didn't recognize and I thought somebody came in the house.
So it looked like kind of like the outline of that Beast character.
Yes. And just when I turned and when I was gonna sit up, I thought, and this person, you can hear him breathing. And then he started coming closer, and that's when I knew something was wrong, because I started getting really scared.
Wow.
And then that's when I said, Jesus, real loud. He went back and right into my face. And he said, Jesus doesn't have your back. And I said, Jesus, real hard, because you have to have faith.
Yeah.
And I just did it without fear. And I just said it this time. And and then he laughed and left.
Wow.
And your mom wasn't, sleeping very good. And that didn't wake her up.
Wow.
She was still asleep. The house was dark. Usually you have the TV on.
Yeah.
It was dark. The whole house was dark. And I thought the power went out, and I turned and the clock was still on.
So we got my dad here to tell stories about UFOs. So Alethia's writing me now. She's tired. So let's get into another UFO sighting that you had.
Okay. I'll push this one right to where I was working. When I was loading my trucks in the coal mine, it was about 2 a.m. I'm pretty sure, and something caught my eye when I was loading, and I kind of glanced way up, and because we were about close to 100 feet down in a pit, and I was like, "What is that?" And I was staring at it, and I stopped actually, and I talked to the truck driver. Hey, he says, "What is that up there?" And then he says, "What do you see?" And I says, "Something's hovering above the trees about 100 feet." I said, "It's going real slow above the pit here." And that truck driver got off, and he says, "What is that? Looks like a drone." He says, "Do they make that big of a drone?"
Oh, weird.
And it was going real slow, huh? And it's like, wow, and on. And it had a light on it that was just, it stayed on. But you can see the outline of it, shadow. And it was huge. And it was going real slow, maybe about 10 miles an hour.
Wow.
And it was going real slow, and they're watching it, and it was going down, I think, northeast. And we had a guy that was down there about 2 miles down. And it was about, I think it was about 5 minutes. And I started loading, and they're talking on pretty soon. He says, hey, Al. He says, your UFO showed up over here. He says, holy cow. And then the boss didn't even say anything, you know. And the guys started chattering to each other and on. He says, is that light that's staying on going, you know, that? And he says, yeah. He says, right here. And he said, he's right. He said, you can see the outline like a shadow, but there's a light that's on.
Oh, weird.
And it's going really slow. He said, there's no planes that go that real slow on it. And I was like, a drone.
Yeah.
But that drone's big and on. And then I thought that would be the last time I seen it. The next night showed up again. Same spot.
Wow.
Over again.
How big do you think it was?
Oh, my God.
They always measure it at arm's length. So if you were to go arm's length and put a penny or a dime in your hand, how big would it be?
Okay, it was 100 feet above me, and then another 100 above the trees. It was about like this.
Wow.
So that's big.
That's
Yeah,
big.
and then the light was right in the center somewhere there, and it was bright, and you could see it just it
Wow.
was going.
That's massive.
That is massive.
And then when he got to him, you can tell he was kind of a little shook up. Hey, and then the next night it did it again. He said, hey, and there was nobody in the pit. It was just me.
Oh, wow.
And so I had a flashlight. He can do nothing at all. I just flashed into the air. I was like, yeah. And I told him on the radio. I said, I'm flickering there and everything. I said, but it's not shiny.
Wow.
And it was just going slow again, going that way again. And then you can see it was just moving this and kind of like making a half circle. And then it disappeared.
Wow.
And then the other one was about 2 weeks later, between early in the morning before the sun come up. And we seen it, and there's a you could see where the airlines have a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Military has a pattern. They always use that pattern.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this thing was on the side of the commercial ones, and this thing was real slow.
Wow.
And we seen one going ahead of it, and like it was going and then they seen it, and they said, "Hey!" And I asked this lady, and she was up on top, 100 feet drilling. I says, "Do you see that?" Then he says, "You mean that thing that looks like a drone?" She seen it.
Wow.
He says, "Yeah." It's moving pretty slow and look like it's going to the wolves.
Wow.
I was like, wow, and it was going so slow. I mean, you can still see it. Those planes are already gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you believe these things are? What do you think?
I don't know, if I had a gun, I would have shot at it. Then you'll find out what the hell that is. You know?
Find out what kind
Military
of
come up and they get mad at me or something. Then no.
find out what kind of thing it shoots back at you.
Yeah.
If it's a bullet, it's military. If it's a laser, it's probably aliens.
But talking about aliens, the place that we're working at, they had an encounter back in the 70s, and it came by the boom of the drag line, real slow, and it was bothering them.
Oh, interesting.
That's weird.
Yeah, and he said it looked like a cigar shape.
That is a well-known craft.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is the cigar-shaped one.
Yeah.
You remember, like I told you that story when we were young, that we saw one over the Catholic Church.
Right. Yeah.
And it was cigar-shaped. And Uncle Ben was out there with us.
Yeah.
And we came in and we were like, we saw a UFO. And our dad was like, what? No, like, kind of. Then Ben walked in, no, we saw a UFO. Like, no, they're serious. We saw this thing. And it was above the Catholic Church, and it just.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and I heard reports like
Yeah.
audios of people like police recordings of them calling in dispatch and stuff and saying they've seen a cigar shaped craft.
Right.
There's
Okay,
a lot
I'll
of
blow your
reports
mind on
that.
this one about the cigar shape. There was 30 people that witnessed it, and the highway was being built then, back in 70, I think it was, around there, 70 around there, and they were making that heavy highway, and from Billings, and the semis were coming across, hauling their dirt. And flaggers were, one was their, both of them were grandmas, my mom and her cousin. And they were flaggers that night. Your grandpa come to check on them because those truck drivers were mean. And to them, not the truck driver working, the people that are cross-country truck drivers. And so he went over to check on, and there was no truck drivers. There were just cars waiting there for the semis that were going by. And he said, you can see the semis coming down from that field, and they were apart each other. And then there's one dim one there, like a car or something. And they're coming across, and they're coming across, and they're just standing there, and pretty soon they were waiting for this one to cross, and guess what it was? It was a cigar shape hovering above the ground.
Oh, wow.
Going in front of everybody got out of the car. Everybody got out of the car. Back in the days, nobody was carrying cameras or anything. And there it was right there, and it was a cigar shape. It wasn't silver. My dad said it was kind of like a bronze color, and it had lights all around it, just blinking. But it was dim. Okay, when it was going across, it was following that truck, and he said the people weren't talking at all. They were just dumbfounded what this was off the ground. And he said and pretty soon it came off the ground, and then it went from one side and streaked across the sky.
Wow.
Okay,
That's crazy.
now they reported that. My dad reported that on his report, and the BIA looks at the reports of everything. When they documented that, they said it was in what did it say in? My dad said, I think he said it was in 11 seconds. It was in England or somewhere. They seen
Whoa.
that streak go over there.
That's fast.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just a streak that. He said it was funny. He said the streak was there for a while.
Wow.
So it had like a tail.
Yeah.
The trail.
Yeah,
It
it
left
just,
like a
it
tail.
just took off. Yeah, it just left a heavy streak, and those people didn't even say a word. They were just all dumbfounded.
Wow.
That's really fast.
That is really
Yeah.
fast.
Like I remember, like there was that triangle shaped, like in London, I think, or around that area, and they said that they saw it over, like around this old folks' home. They said it was like a retirement home, and it had like this blinking red light in the center of it, and they saw something come out, and they said it was like almost like a smaller craft, but they said it was a light. They said every time that blinking light on the ship would blink, it would blink in unison with that little thing coming out, and it was going looking in all the windows.
Wow.
And then it went back up in the ship, and then that ship took off. And then literally immediately after that ship took off, they said it was like, maybe a minute or so later, it was reported being seen like 100 miles away.
Wow.
And then from there, another place a couple 100 miles away.
Interesting.
It was going like all in one night. It was reported like in so many different towns and cities, hundreds of miles away from each other.
Wow.
The same craft.
So
These things can move, man.
Yeah, they can move. So what do you say?
About what?
Is that it for now?
Their headset's crooked.
I don't take it off 'cause I thought I heard something.
You thought you heard something?
Yeah. Do you? So Dad's definitely going to be back because he has more stories.
There's a lot more.
You have more UFO stories, right?
I'll try to remember some of them because I try to, what I mean?
Yeah.
Jeremy, every time I ask you guys or to remind me of this because I don't want to leave it out.
Right.
Now we always do that too. Like we're talking, I'm like, oh man, I forgot to tell this or say this story.
I always want to write it down and then come here, and then I can go down the line and all.
You can do that too.
Yeah, we should do that.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And for me, so I can, have, all that out, because all this is there. And now, back then in the years, you don't have phones
Right.
and hand phones and everything. And then now, look, everybody has everything.
Right.
Yeah, everybody has a camera on them.
Yeah, back in the day, you see Bigfoot, and then it's just a witness that's with you.
Right.
And you don't have cameras, hand phones and
Right.
stuff, And these days, sometimes you'll forget, you're so amazed of seeing it, and it's, oh man, my phone,
Yeah.
And it's surprising what, I see some of the stuff that people show on that. And I was like, hey, wait a minute, this looks what I seen.
Yeah.
Or this is what I heard yelling
Right.
and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is real. This is what I heard. This is this. And yes, it's out there.
Right.
And that's what I mean,
So
These days are all.
we'll do our best to remind you, because you are over the hill and getting up there in age. One last gut punch for big guy.
That's one to go out with. So like we'll do that. Like next time we'll try to make it like have a list, and then we could just go through and
Stay
just
with
hit
it.
these stories.
Right.
Because this podcast was all over the place.
It was.
We jumped everywhere.
It was a good podcast.
No,
man.
you did.
I was just trying to like get this theory out and then just tell you why this theory kind of falls apart on me.
And then Zeus kicked out the devil.
I know. And then we ended up getting into Hitler and Zeus and God.
Now we
Angelic
know
beings.
Marcus isn't really good at articulating arguments, because one little poke and he's like,
You kept cutting me off. I was trying to talk. I was going to tell you why. Say, okay, this is why this theory falls apart on me. I'm not like, this is what I believe. Trying to back up. You're an idiot.
what I was going to say is just quickly mentioning those UFO videos of Tic-Tac that just came out. Is they said
Those
that,
have been around for a little while.
The military always plans a rendezvous spot in the air to where they all gather or where they all go. This UFO knew where they were going to go before they got there, so it was messing with them, and then it shot over here. But when I heard Joe Rogan talk about this, and he's like, it's almost like it's saying, I know you're going here.
Yeah.
And they have another spot just in case that one's taken, and it shoots over there. It says, I know you're going here too. Before the military
It knew their routes,
Right.
where they were going, and it got there in an instant. Literally
Right.
here, there.
So they can't go there now. And these are military pilots. When they have to have these maneuvers and have these plans in place just in case they have to go and fight. And this aircraft is saying, I know you're going over here, and I already probably have a plan for if you go over here. And now they have another spot, and it shoots over there saying, I know you're going here too, and I have a plan for over here too. And this aircraft is doing that. It's scary.
It scares him. It wouldn't
Right.
scare me. No, I would like. No, I'd be ready to fight that thing. Like I've been waiting for this.
Man, you're just all sorts
You know
of
what I'm
yoked
saying?
up on this thing. Mark's all yoked up, being like, I'm not scared of ghosts.
Nope. That's how everybody get back to the base, and I'll just freaking have Highway to the Danger Zone queued up on the radio. Hit that and just. No, I'm sorry. I'll give him like a total Ricky Bobby answer.
Marcus got a little trying to do a two-hander thing there. It's more of a one-hander there you got there.
Like, no offense, but I'm going to do
It's
some
gut
flying.
So we can end the podcast there. My dad's going to be back on the podcast, and we'll get his notes ready. And I mean, we've been doing this artist series, but we're trying to cover artists and trying to give them exposure. And we always ask them if they have a ghost story, just to keep it on brand. And for everyone listening out there, and you're hearing all these artists out there, and then you're like, it literally looked like he kicked like
I know.
away.
Just
All
to
right, you're
shut you
done.
up.
But everyone out there listening to these podcasts, just stick with us. We're getting back to the lore podcasts and oddities, and we're planning our Halloween series coming up. We'll announce that later on. But for now, my name is T.T.H. This is Marcus with the stupid beats. This is my dad, and he'll be back on the podcast. And you're listening to Fallen Out.
Oh, what you were saying about these artists now?
Yes. and you're listening.
They all have a story too. So
Right.
like usually.
Okay.
But when we brought up like you were talking about, you know, when we're talking before, I don't know if it was on the camera or not because we stopped this thing so many times.
Right.
It was like when you talk about something, sometimes some things manifest, like Dad was saying.
Right.
Like, you know, you acknowledge a ghost, it'll start bothering you.
Right.
And stuff like that. We have an artist that's coming on. She doesn't want to talk about this kind of stuff, but she has stories.
Yeah, she's not recorded yet.
Yeah, she's not recorded yet.
Yeah.
And like I asked her after we interviewed her husband,
Troy Evans.
Yeah, Troy Evans,
Who is world renowned for his art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When I asked her, "Do you have any stories?" and she has stories,
Right.
but she's kind of leery on talking
We gotta
about them
pry it out
because
so.
she knows. She said the same thing. I could bring, you know, that
Right.
out or bring stuff back. So like,
It'll be an interesting
like,
podcast.
I'm gonna ask you. I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, oh no, I got to hear these stories.
Right.
You
So
piqued my interest.
we've been going for like 2 hours now.
No,
so
I know. We did last time too. So
So my name is T.T.H. This is Marcus with the Beats, and this is my dad. He'll be back on the podcast, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio. Jesus, man. Trying to end a long time ago.
Holy cow.
You are now listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Sid Elinik. This is Marcus, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio.